Even though they were both from the same place, they couldn't have been more different. One grew up in the streets and the other in church, but music would be the thing to link these two vocal talents for decades to come. Ruff Endz had the early 2000s R&B game on lock from the moment their first single dropped. However, their outstanding sound and look couldn't keep them from eventually disappearing from the scene for many years, leading fans to believe that they would never be heard from again. Let's find out whatever happened to R&B duo Ruff Endz. David, nicknamed Da Vinci Chance, and Dante, nicknamed Chi Jordan, collectively known as Ruff Endz, met in the early 90s in West Baltimore, Maryland. While growing up with influences such as Marvin Gaye and the gospel group Commissioned, Dante eventually found himself in a group at the age of 14 with a bunch of much older men that went by the name of Total Male. At the time, he was heavily into the street life and completely abandoned school. However, while in the group, he realized how important it was to buckle down and get his high school diploma, so he did just that. On his first day back, he met David, who just happened to be skipping class to hang out in the music room. David grew up around plenty of music, naturally, since both his parents sang professionally at one time. His father was also a preacher and raised the family on gospel music, but he also got his fill of secular artists as well, like Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder. Him and his 9 siblings also helped their missionary mother give away food to the poor. Despite their very different family dynamics and upbringings, they clicked right away. They eventually put a quartet together named Ultimate Condition. Their talent was so undeniable that it got the attention of Patti LaBelle, but differences among the members didn't allow for anything to pan out. Things really didn't get rolling until a conversation with another Baltimore singer, Rufus Waller, also known as Scola, from the R&B group Dru Hill. He advised David and Dante to leave the group and carry on as a duo. They decided to go for it since they knew they would stand out as a 2-man group since there weren't many of those around. Dave and Brown, as they were originally called since another one of Dante's nicknames is Charlie Brown, soon became Ruff Endz. The name perfectly described the daily hustle and grind they had to go through to make their dream come true. It was literally rough making ends meet. They got to work right away writing and recording their own material. They poured their heart and soul into their music, not only because they were hungry for success, but also because they saw firsthand all the violence and chaos happening around them in their hometown. They knew making it big in the music industry was their ticket out. Since the money wasn't rolling in just yet, they also worked regular 9-to-5s, one being at the Fudgery, the singing fudge shop that the members of Dru Hill also worked at years prior. Not only were they able to earn a paycheck, but the exposure also helped them relax their nerves and improve their showmanship. Their first demo that they put together didn't get them anywhere, but even though they felt discouraged, they decided to persevere. Enter O.G. Pierce, a songwriter-producer responsible for the Montel Jordan hit This Is How We Do It. He scrapped their original demo and made a new one, which they brought to the offices of Epic Records in 1999. They blew everyone away with a live performance right then and there and were signed immediately. While the duo was working on their debut album, they got the opportunity to appear on their label-made Cameron's single Freak that same year. Then, in June 2000, Ruff Endz released their debut single, No More. People couldn't get enough of the amazing sound the mix of Dante's rich baritone and David's smooth tenor made together. The song became an instant hit, peaking at number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on the R&B charts. The single wasn't even the group's first choice for their debut, but after it began to circulate to club and radio DJs and a lot of buzz started to generate, they just ran with it. Their debut album, Love Crimes, was released 2 months later. They did release a follow-up single, Where Does Love Go From Here, but it didn't chart. After a lengthy tour and all the ideas and inspirations they garnered along the way, they wasted no time getting back into the studio to begin work on their sophomore album. The following year, the first single from that album, Cash Money Cars Clothes featuring Memphis Bleek, dropped without much fanfare. It wasn't until the next single, Someone to Love You, released 1 year later, that they were able to reignite the flame and get back on the charts. Their album of the same name was released 3 months after that. The duo decided to take a break in 2003 after personal issues between the two came to a head, coupled with business issues with their label. The same year, a compilation album of greatest hits was released. Yes, you heard correctly, a greatest hits album by a group that had only put out 2 albums total by that point. Upon investigation, it appears that the album was really an easy and convenient way to honor their final contract release with Epic Records and leave them free to seek other representation. Their break ended up stretching on longer than they both anticipated. David gave some insight as to the reason in an interview with rnbjunkieofficial.com, saying, "We parted ways with Sony and we were looking to try to do another situation. We actually had an independent situation on the table through Universal. Our friendship and personal lives at the time had some hiccups. My dad had passed away and my girlfriend at the time was pregnant, and I was about to be a father, and it was just a lot going on in my personal life and Dante's personal life, and so it was definitely a major cause in us parting ways and starting a family and that kind of thing." Over the next several years, both men pursued solo endeavors, and even though the duo was no longer recording together, they still released the album The Final Chapter, a compilation of previously unreleased material, to iTunes in 2010. David started his own company and digitally released a couple of new projects, including the album Unconditional Love and the first single Love of All Time in 2012. He also became an independent filmmaker and worked on a number of short films. Dante did his own thing and also worked on projects with other artists such as Kool and the Gang and Slave. Then a strange thing happened. Ruff Endz was back all of a sudden, but not the Ruff Endz the fans recognized. Dante wanted to get the group back together, but David made it clear that he was very content doing what he was already doing at the time and didn't have any interest in doing the group thing anymore. So, with David's blessing, Dante made the decision to carry on without him and bring a new member into the fold, fellow Baltimorean Will Carter, professionally known as Will Starr. However, this new beginning would end as quickly as it began, since a terrible event on the horizon would bring back the 2 original members in an emotional way. After all their time apart, David and Dante were finally motivated to come back together for a good cause. They released the single Time for Change in 2016 in response to the Baltimore riots that had taken over the city at the time as a response to the death of Freddie Gray. Then in 2018, when the fans were least expecting it, Ruff Endz came out with Soul Brothers, their first studio album in 8 years. In an interview with YouKnowIGotSoul.com, Dante spoke about the overall vibe of the album, saying, "The album is rated P for positive. We wanted to be certain this is an album we can play for different audiences, whether it's my mother or daughter. We both have kids now. This album was created very purposeful, thinking about the power of having an audience that's going to be influenced by our music." In 2020, it was announced that a new Ruff Endz album was on the way to celebrate the 20th anniversary of their debut that year. C19 ended up delaying things a bit, but they did manage to squeeze in a celebratory live stream concert in November. They kept forging ahead, and according to their website, the new album, titled Rebirth, will be dropping March 2021. Thanks for watching. Please like and share the video and subscribe for more amazing content. See you next time.